From hardships of Ukraine and Moldova, from broken bodies, shattered glass, and whispered prayers of grief in Russia, Ukraine, and Germany, from centuries of pogroms, massacres, extermination, anti-Semitism, and Holocaust, emerged minds that would change the world. Jews, despite centuries of persecution, rose to extraordinary heights in science, music, and philosophy. They carried with them not only the scars of history, but also an unbreakable spirit and a relentless pursuit of excellence. From oppression to extraordinary heights in music, complex and enchanting world of melodies that require immense musical imagination and deep melodic perception. Who are musical wonderkinds and intuitive tunesmiths? Who are music people? The legacy of Jewish musicians extraordinary are widely known. From the Eastern Europe to Western Europe to America, Jews are known for their amazing musical talent in composing or performing music. Depth and brilliance. Depth and brilliance in music composition and interpretation is unrivaled among Jewish people. Driven from the ancient Talmudic melodies and transferred from generation to generation among this ethnic group with many cultural interpretations, and through plethora of international languages, music has been part and parcel of the Jewish soul and profoundly essential for the life of Jewish people over many centuries. From classical to hip-hop, Jewish musicians and composers have shaped almost every genre. Let's examine a Jewish superpower of the last 200 years in music. Felix Mendelssohn, one of the most popular German Jewish composers of the Romantic era. Gustav Mahler, one of the greatest Austrian Jewish late Romantic composers who influenced 20th century classical music. Arnold Schoenberg, an Austrian and American composer, music theorist, teacher, and writer who transformed the practice of harmony and motifs in 20th century classical music. Leonard Bernstein, a legendary American composer and conductor, a child of Russian, Ukrainian, Jewish immigrants, brought classical music into the mainstream and composed timeless works like West Side Story. Benny Goodman, the king of swing, a son of Jewish immigrants from Poland and Lithuania, he broke racial barriers in jazz and popularized big band music across America. Artie Shaw, a leading swing clarinetist and band leader. Stephen Sondheim, legendary Broadway composer of Sweeney Todd and Into the Woods. Itzhak Perlman, a violin virtuoso, a son of Polish Jewish immigrants, whose technical brilliance and deep emotional expression made him one of the greatest musicians of all time. Irving Berlin, who wrote hundreds of songs, in fact about 500 songs, and was called the greatest songwriter that has ever lived, a Russian-born Jewish-American composer and songwriter whose music forms a large part of the Great American Songbook. Berlin received numerous honors, including an Academy Award, a Grammy Award, and a Tony Award. He also received the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1977. Broadcast journalist Walter Cronkite stated Irving Berlin, Jewish immigrant, helped write the story of this country, the United States of America, capturing the best of who we are, Americans, and the dreams that shape our lives. George Gershwin, composer of Rhapsody in Blue in American in Paris, a son of Jewish immigrants from Eastern Europe, he blended jazz and classical music to create a uniquely American sound. Andrew Lloyd Webber, British composer of Phantom of the Opera and Cats. John Williams, son of a Lithuanian Jewish mother, a prolific film composer who composed music for Star Wars, Jaws, Indiana Jones, Harry Potter, and more. Let's talk about legendary classical American pianists like Arthur Rubinstein, Vladimir Horowitz, and Menachem Pressler. They were extraordinary, passionate classic piano players of the 20th century. Bob Dylan, born Robert Zimmerman, a poetic and revolutionary genius, a singer-songwriter, a grandchild of Jewish immigrants who ran from pogroms in Odessa, Ukraine, who reshaped folk and rock music with his astonishing, poignant, touching, and distressing lyrics. Yes, and how many years can some people exist before they are allowed to be free? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind, earning a Nobel Prize in Literature for his lyrical contributions. The first musician and the only songwriter who won the Nobel Prize. Paul Simon, half of Simon and Garfunkel, known for folk music influences. His genius found millions of people in the world who needed his sensible melodies as a bridge over troubled water to ease the mind. Billy Joel, one of the best-selling musicians of all time, blended rock, pop, and classical elements, a piano man of sad and sweet melodies, who would give you nostalgia of love when you are in the mood for a melody. Leonard Cohen, one of the most influential singer-songwriter, poet, and novelist of the 20th century, a son of Lithuanian Jewish immigrants who immigrated to Canada, the best songwriter of his generation according to Bob Dylan, he, with his deep spirituality, wrote haunting lyrics and melodies, including Hallelujah, and left an indelible mark on music and literature, exploring love, faith, politics, and human suffering. I did my best. It wasn't much. I couldn't feel, so I tried to touch. I've told the truth. I didn't come to fool you. And even though it all went wrong, I'll stand before the Lord of Song with nothing on my tongue but hallelujah. I truly believe that only a Jewish genius like Leonard Cohen could express a multi-generational suffering of his people through his music, so emotionally deep and insanely moving. We could continue this list of Jewish musicians for many pages and many hours, but please search Jewish American composers on internet and you will be surprised to see hundreds of names of prominent musicians, both composers and performers, most of them European immigrants of the first and second generations, who shaped the American music of the adopted country more than any other ethnic group. But don't just examine an American Jewish music history. Search any European country. You will be surprised to discover a disproportionate number of celebrated musicians of Jewish ancestry. From Felix Mendelssohn, classic German composer of the early 19th century, who was baptized into the Christian Church at age 7, to Irving Berlin, Russian-born immigrant to America of the 20th century who was proud of his Jewish upbringing. European and American music benefited enormously from Jewish musicians, who have been composing Christian music from symphonies and chamber music to jazz and pop, becoming part of the great European and American musical anthology. All this incredible music, with its depth and vulnerability, has been composed by Jews, who in their compositions were moving from minor keys to major keys and back, creating music for all humanity, all people, believers and atheists, who have an open ear for goodness. Just to get a sense of the level of music depth and quality, these are published reviews of some Jewish outstanding performers, pianists and violinists. Number 1. Two of the world's leading violinists performed together for the first time in 1977. Not since Yehudi Menuhin and Isaac Stern played together in Edinburgh in 1953 have these two violinists of this caliber seriously set out to harness their individual talents to the pleasures of playing together. The harmonious duo of Itzhak Perlman and Pinchas Zukerman at London's Royal College of Music. Number 2. The 1958 recording of Bach's double violin concerto featuring Yehudi Menuhin and David Oistrakh remains a landmark in classical music history. This collaboration between two of the 20th century greatest violinists bring a rare depth of expression and technical brilliance to Bach's masterpiece, creating a mesmerizing performance that continues to captivate listeners. Number 3. Menachem Pressler, at the age 94, delivers an unforgettable piano performance of Chopin's Nocturne in C-sharp minor. Marvel at the subtlety and artistic sensitivity of the legendary pianist. Number 4. Vladimir Horowitz, in 1986 Moscow Conservatory of Music, Schumann's Traummerei. The piano's spoken melody, filled with nostalgia and longing, seemed to bring the entire room to tears. Many in the audience were overcome with emotions and wept openly. This performance was pure, undiluted artistry. Horowitz has returned not just to Russia, but to the hearts of those who had never forgotten him. Number 5. Theo Gertler, a modern, amazing virtuoso, Jewish-Hungarian violin player at age 11. Depth, again depth and depth and depth, depth and brilliance. That is how his music has been consistently described. Age 11. From age 11 to age 94, artistic sensitivity, depth, and musical brilliance. Be kind to these people. Who can compose the music or play an instrument that can move you to tears? Jewish musicians and composers left an indelible mark on American and international culture. These musicians created the foundation of American and European music and entertained presidents and prime ministers and millions of people all over the world. About 50% of all recipients of the American Academy Award for the Best Original Song and Best Musical Scoring are Jews, 50%. About 60% of all recipients of the Tony Award for the Best Musical Production and Best Original Score of a musical are Jews, 60%. From oppression to extraordinary heights in music. Jewish musical brilliance. Be kind to these people. From hardships of Ukraine and Moldova, from broken bodies, shattered glass, and whispered prayers of grief in Russia, Ukraine, and Germany, from centuries of pogroms, massacres, extermination, anti-Semitism, and Holocaust, emerged minds that would change the world. Jews, despite centuries of persecution, rose to extraordinary heights in music, science, philosophy. They carried with them not only the scars of history, but also an unbreakable spirit and relentless pursuit of excellence, from persecution to extraordinary heights. In psychology, Jewish psychologists have been instrumental in creating the field of modern psychology. The fundamentals of several psychological movements can be traced directly to Jewish values, ideas, and practices, and Jews in the 20th century were at the forefront of research about the psyche and the varieties of human behavior. Psychoanalysis was founded by Sigmund Freud, and with notable exception of Carl Jung, most of its early proponents were also Jews. Why are the Jewish people strong in psychology, you might ask? Some intellectual historians speculate that it was a particular Jewish personality and cultural traits and Talmudic tradition that led Jews to explore their people's sufferings, asking questions: why? Why us? Trying to understand the Jewish personality and character, and by extension the overall human behavior. Based on immensely painful history full of physical and emotional sufferings, Jewish philosophers and psychologists professed a sad but profound Kabbalistic wisdom that pain and suffering were an integral part of human experience, and therefore life. Pain is a part of life. They admitted that life, with all its suffering, could be seen as a catalyst for personal transformation, growth, and spiritual development, and that we, human beings, should not bear our ancestors' pain. We, human beings, should not bear our ancestors' pain because each generation has its own sufferings. Analyzing human behavior, Jewish psychologists and psychoanalysts originated the fundamentals of psychology that revolutionized the field of psychological sciences in its early days, from oppression to extraordinary heights in writing. Jewish literature of the 19th and 20th century spans every type of prose, with names like Marcel Proust, Heinrich Heine, Boris Pasternak, Sholem Aleichem, Shmuel Yosef Agnon, first Jewish writer to receive a Nobel Prize in Literature, Isaac Bashevis Singer, Nobel Prize in Literature, Isaac Asimov, Saul Bellow, Nobel Prize in Literature, Elie Wiesel, Nobel Peace Prize, Nelly Sachs, Nobel Prize in Literature, Joseph Heller, Catch-22, Emma Lazarus, David Mamet, Pulitzer Prize, The Adventures of Augie March, Philip Roth, United States National Book Award, Bernard Malamud, Pulitzer Prize, J.D. Salinger, The Catcher in the Rye, Herman Wouk, The Caine Mutiny, Pulitzer Prize, Lemony Snicket, pen name of Daniel Handler, A Series of Unfortunate Events, Unbelievable Ayn Rand, pen name for Alisa Rosenbaum, Atlas Shrugged, Joseph Brodsky, Nobel Prize in Literature, Bob Dylan, the only poet-songwriter who received the Nobel Prize in Literature, and many, many more. Jewish literary brilliance. Be kind to these people. Jewish people are founding fathers of Hollywood and cinema industry too, and not only in America. International cinematic history has an astonishing and disproportionate to other ethnicities amount of Jewish movie producers and directors, shaping the film industry in numerous ways in front of and behind the camera, from directing to acting to composing. An astonishing number of Jewish comedians all over the world, wandering Jews, through sad self-depreciation, poignant humor, sharp irony and dark sarcasm, have been reimagining and retelling 100-year-old jokes to a laughing world, in attempt to calm a disturbed Jewish soul, and in the process, souls of millions of people of any beliefs. This poignant Jewish humor has always been the best way to learn about human imperfections and fragility of our world. How about Jewish technological geniuses of the 21st century? Martin Cooper developed the first mobile phone in 1972 and changed global communication forever. Sergey Brin and Larry Page from Google transformed how people access information. Larry Ellison from Oracle. Mark Zuckerberg from Meta Platforms, formerly Facebook. Steve Ballmer from Microsoft. Michael Dell from Dell Technologies, Michael Bloomberg from Bloomberg LP, and many other extraordinary modern-day visionaries revolutionized our modern computer technology and communication systems. What about Jewish revolutionaries? Centuries of persecution also contributed to the fact that there has been so many prominent Jewish revolutionaries. The power of intellect and desire for change, even radical, longing to prevent future pogroms, holocausts, desire to have freedom and democracy after centuries of oppression, led many Jewish intellectuals with outstanding oratorial skills towards politics and political changes in Europe and America. Insulted, injured, and oppressed, Jews were part and parcel of political transformations and revolutionary movements in many parts of the world. In an American Revolution, this was Francis Salvador, the first Jewish person fighting for American independence and elected to public office in 1774. In Europe, it was Karl Marx, end of the 19th century philosopher, economist, and revolutionary who wrote the Communist Manifesto and Das Kapital, and whose work had an enormous influence on the world politics. Leon Trotsky, Lev Bronstein, was one of the most prominent and influential figures of the Russian Revolution of 1917. Many European Jews, due to continuous persecution and oppression, moved to Ottoman Palestine at the beginning of the 20th century, following the call of Theodor Herzl, the father of political Zionism, and became the founders of the State of Israel, like David Ben-Gurion, Ziv Jabotinsky, Golda Meir, Chaim Weizmann, Menachem Begin, and many, many others. Insulted, injured, and oppressed, Jews were part of major political transformation in the world.